but then it's hard to get.
Presentation, you will start. For the people who just joined, we will be starting in 2 minutes. I hope everybody has their materials that I put in the email, so this would be a good time to go get them.
No, there's materials. Which materials?
Sankalp, you're on mute.
So, can you see the materials right here? Can you see those materials? So all the materials I need is 2 tissue papers, just tissue papers, paper towels, a small tray, or I'm just using a cap of the disposable tray, and mustard seeds or fenugreek seeds or any microgreen seeds, and a little bit of water.
So
those are the materials.
A napkin?
Yeah, paper napkin.
Do we have to get them, or?
You can just look at me doing it, and you can do it later. So after the class, you can do it.
Okay. So.
Hi. Okay, everything. So I'm gonna start presenting now.
So what are the stuff?
For today's session, we're gonna be talking about soil and seeds. Questions would be welcome, but if possible, can you please put the questions in the chat, and I will be answering all of them in the Q&A section at the end of the session. So if possible, to decrease disturbances, can you please keep your questions to the end? Or you can just put it in the chat and I'll answer them at the end of the session. So I saw a question. The materials are, I put it in the email. The materials are just a tissue paper, a small tray, and a few fenugreek seeds. My dad would be answering questions in the chat, so you can send the questions to Raja Imarisetti. He'll be answering the questions, most of the questions. Yeah.
2 of the materials.
Okay.
Napkin and tray.
Okay. So, my name is Sankalp Imarisetti. I am 12 years old and I live in Roseville, California in the United States, and I live in Zone 9B. Zone 9B is my weather. I've been passionate about gardening since I was a toddler. I started gardening when I was 2, when my parents sow a few colorful carrots, and since then I just loved gardening. And I also have a good YouTube channel called Green Thumb Gardening, so it would be nice if you could check that out. Before we start, I just wanted to tell you a few details about this presentation. This is not one presentation. This is 3 course series. So this is the first presentation. Today is the Tuesday, February 16th, and the second one is going to be on the 18th, and the third one is going to be on the 20th. If possible, if you can come to all of the sessions, it would be nice, because then you can learn all of the slides, and they're all different. And in these sessions, you'll just learn the fundamentals and a few fun facts on gardening. So hopefully after these sessions, you'll want to do some gardening, and hopefully you'll start a garden. And lots of people say they don't have a green thumb and they kill plants, but if you just have the knowledge, you can get your own green thumb. So let's get cracking on our first session, seeds and soil. So for our contents today, I'm going to talk about what really is soil. I mean, have you ever wondered what soil is? And then I'm going to be talking about beneficial insects and fungi in the soil. There's lots of insects and fungi in the soil, which nobody really knows about. Seedlings versus seedlings. Which are cheaper? Which are better? Which are easier? I'm going to talk about all of those, and you can choose which is better and which is better for you. And then I'm going to bring the seeds and soil together and talk about how you can plant seeds in the soil. So starting on with what really is soil, here is a chart, a triangular chart. At the top is clay, and this corner is sand. And over here is the soil that you really want, because the loam is the soil you really want. And this is not potting soil. This is a soil that you'll use in raised beds. So what you want is this section that you want in the ground. Unluckily, most soil is in this section, so you'll have to amend your soil with compost and other organic matter to make it come into this section. Loam and silt. These silt are deposits from rivers where they're all they're nutrient-rich soil, and loam is kind of like compost and decomposed matter. So as you can see over here, loam is 80% silt, 50% sand, and very little clay. But unlucky for me, I am at the top over here with 100% clay in my garden. So what I did was I amended the soil with silt and loam and made it into this section. That's like kind of like the golden place. So I'm now going to talk about potting soil and the differences between all of them. Potting mix is not really soil, it's decomposed organic matter. Organic matter is anything that was living at one point. So it's decomposed organic matter. So compost is literally decomposed organic matter because So potting mix has three main parts: the base, the organic matter, and some sort of medium to help with drainage. So usually in the potting mix that I make, there are multiple benefits of making your own potting mix. And that's because potting mix, it's much cheaper. You can add the things that you want. So you can add fertilizer, you can make it organic. There's multiple reasons why you should make your own potting mix. So usually in most commercial potting mixes, the base is peat moss, but lots of us know what coco coir is. So I usually use 2 parts peat moss as the base, 2 parts organic matter, and once in a while, in some very, very rich potting mixes, they only use compost and they don't use potting mix. The base. And with organic matter, I usually like to add it because it just helps with nutrients and it also holds lots of water. The reason you should not make your potting mix 100% of compost or manure is because it brings drainage problems with it, and it rot, fungi, mildew. Lots of those components come with it if you use only organic matter such as compost and manure. And the third part is one of the most critical parts in potting mix, which is the aeration. All potting mixes have the white balls. You can see these white balls, right? You know what those are? Those are perlite. The perlite is basically ashes and volcanic. It comes from volcanoes, and same thing with vermiculite. And the sand, when you water the plants, they rise up to the top slowly, and they create kind of like these air pockets that help the plants live, and it prevents it from basically making it into a swamp. So a good potting mix has 3 main categories. first of all, a good potting mix always should hold moisture around the plant's roots. So one is using enough water, and the potting mix you should not be watering the plant every other second because because the potting mix should be able to hold that water, and it should provide the air for the roots to breathe. As I said, the air, the aeration, the vermiculite. That's like a really huge point. And it should like be strong enough to support the plant. It can't just be just 100% sand, and if any bit of wind comes, they'll fall. Now I'm going to be talking about the difference between normal soil. Now I'm going to be talking about the difference between garden soil and potting mix. So garden soil is, as I can show you over here, is clay or sand or sandy loam. But potting mix is what I just said, because potting mix has organic matter and potting mix does not have real soil. You can't just go out in your garden and dig out soil and put it in your potting mix. That's not how it works. Because if you do that, what usually happens, unless you have the richest soil in the world, what usually happens is you get the bad bacteria that's in the soil and it's not good for drainage. So that's why you should use the proper potting mixes that they sell, or you should make your own properly. So I want you guys to guess what that is. What is this fungusy thing? What is this fungusy thing, and what are all of this? What is all that fungus? Guess what that is. In the chat, can you please type what you think that is? In the chat. I'm going to give you a few minutes to type in what that fungusy thing is in the chat. And if possible, type it to me. Yeah, chat is in the bottom right corner. So I got one person saying it's root rot. Okay, yeah. Okay, there's one more person saying roots. Yep, there are a few roots in there that I can see. Okay, is there anyone else? Yeah, there's another person saying roots. So it seems like fungi. Yeah, you're right. That is fungi, but root rot, fungi, same. Fungi and root rot, good. So say fungi and root rot. So I'm sadly to say almost all of your answers are wrong, because this isn't root rot, but it is fungi. This is called mycorrhiza. Microorganisms and fungi in soil. So this is the next thing I'm going to be talking about. Lots of soil, especially inorganic soil, as you can see over here, this is the normal root. But all of this is mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza is a fungus in the soil, which it's kind of like these nodes and fungus, where they go into the soil and get the other nutrients that the plant can't get, because the plant can just have as many roots. But these fungus can go into the soil and get the nutrients that the plant can't normally get. And so in that way, the plant can have more water, nutrients, and minerals, and all around a better plant and a stronger and vigorous plant. So why do they do that? The fungus, the mycorrhizal fungus, and plants have a symbiotic relationship that they created millions of years ago. That's a fun fact. And that symbiotic relationship says that whenever a node of mycorrhiza goes to near a root, the plant will trade the extra carbon and sugars that it gets in, and the mycorrhiza fungi trades all of the nutrients, extra nutrients that it has. So in that way, the fungus can live and the plants can stay, and it can get more nutrients, and it's kind of like a win-win situation. And this fungus to see in your soil, whenever you see the bark and ew, all that white stuff, that's not ew. That's really, really good for your soil. And the these are a few insects. These are beneficial. You know these roly-polies that I saw in school and stuff, and a few people play with them, and they just roll up into balls. Those eat the leaves that fall down the mulch, and they decompose them into smaller materials and make them into compost. And so do the worms over here. I have a worm bin, and these worms are from the worm bin. All earthworms do the same thing. They eat decomposed matter, or they eat the soil and make it even better. And this over here is a ground beetle. The ground beetle makes the soil, it does the same thing. It decomposes. And it also eats a few pests. Yeah, it does eat pests. Well, it's time for a break. You can take a small water break, or you can go to the bathroom. And I can answer a few questions here if you had any. Yeah, you can unmute and talk now.
So Sankalp, how do you get mycorrhiza?
Well, I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat that, please?
Where do we get mycorrhiza in the soil? Where do we get it?
So you can buy it at most garden stores. What I use is I usually use they sell them in these packets, and I use it for my plant. It's called an inoculant. You take it and you sprinkle it in the soil and you mix it up and you add water, so that's kind of like the spores of the fungus. And after that, once you add it to your soil, that's enough because it's a living thing and it lives forever. And fun fact for those who didn't know, mycorrhiza is the largest living being on the earth because it goes across. So one network of fungus goes all around, like almost entire of America.
Okay.
So you can find this at any, it's called mycorrhiza, and they sell them in small packets.
Packets.
Let me search it up.
Relation with the plant or the other fungi?
Oh wait, can you please repeat that?
So is mycorrhiza the only fungi that goes in a symbiotic relationship with the plant, or there is any other varieties of fungus that do the same?
Mainly it's mycorrhiza.
Okay.
So usually, let's see, if I go to my YouTube, I remember posting a video on this. So if I go to my videos, so it will look like this. Here, can you see mycos right there?
Okay.
It looks like that. I use the mycos one, and I use that for my pumpkin plant 9 months ago. Okay, so the break will end in 4 minutes. We will come yes.
Where did you get that mycos from?
We got that mycos from you can get it at any garden store, literally anyone. It'll be available at most Home Depots, Lowe's, pretty much anywhere that has a garden center. But we got this from Green Acres, that's in Folsom area, Roseville area.
Is that a local nursery?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
So Sankalp, one more question.
Yes.
So if I buy potty mix bags from outside and mix that with my garden soil, whatever soil I had home, What is the ratio? What is the ratio? Is it 50?
What do you mean by garden soil? Like just the soil from the
Yeah, whatever
earth?
is there. Yeah, whatever from that. Yeah,
No, you should not do that.
should not do that.
Yeah, doing that does not help the soil. It just makes it worse.
Okay, got it.
But you can mix the potting soil in the ground to make the soil ground better. But that's an expensive way.
Hmm.
So can you talk a little bit more about potting soil, the proportions, how to mix, and the different kinds, like the garden soil or the potting soil?
So usually raised bed mix is usually compost and manure, and usually what you get. So if you usually see the raised beds behind me, what I use in those is mainly compost, manure, a little bit of bark, or just a little bit of organic matter and sand. So there wasn't any vermiculite or perlite because that was the ground, and it can just seep back down. So, break is over, and I'll get started now. So now I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of seedlings and seeds. Usually seeds are always the most cost effective. That is mainly because how cheap seeds are. And if you ever buy a seed packet of lettuce, for example, a lettuce packet of seed would have at least 500 seeds because they're so tiny, and you get that for max $2, $3. But at the same time, when you buy a lettuce seedling, you get it for around $1 to $3 per plant. So when you see that, you can definitely see how the seeds are much better cost effective. In the variety wise, seeds again are the winners because it's easier to distribute more seeds than more seeds. As you can see over here, this is my seed collection. This is just a few of my seeds. I have a whole box. I have more. So I usually like to use seeds because I have a better idea of what varieties I can get. And I can get my own varieties, like I can get chocolate tomatoes. So it's much better that way, in my opinion. But the seedlings, they can't give you all of the different seedlings, because they can't give every different variety in a nursery. And the ease of use, usually seedlings are much better because all you have to do is dig a hole, add some fertilizer, plant them. But seeds, you have to move it, there's till the ground and plant them, and it's just much harder. That's why the convenience, it's also seedlings. As I said, the digging, it's just not convenient to dig the soil so many times and put so much fertilizer and put the fertilizer again and again, put the holes, put the seeds in each hole, make sure spacing is right, thinning, and all of that. And because of that, the speed again goes to seedlings because you can just do it very fast. Dig, hole, put, done. So usually for beginners, I'd say seedlings are the way to go. Seeds don't have as high as a success rate as seedlings. That's because when you buy a seedling, you have almost 80 to 100% success rate of growing that into a plant. But when you have a seed, you don't even know if it's going to sprout. So if you have a seed, seeds can lose viability over time, and if you don't store them right. So I store my seeds right here in the freezer. But if you don't store them in the freezer, usually most people don't store them in the freezer, and that's totally fine. But storing them in the freezer gives them more time to live. No matter what the amount of years, an onion seed can drop as much as half germination rate just in 1 year. So if you don't, the onions that you buy at a nursery, you just know you have the plants right there and you can plant. You just know that you have a plant, and no matter what. And seedlings, as I'm saying, seedlings are usually ready to plant as soon as you buy them, and they start producing faster because whenever you buy a seed and you want to plant it outside, instead of planting this, you usually plant seeds a few weeks after the frost date. But the same thing, you plant seedlings a few days after the frost date, and usually seedlings are at least 2 weeks older than seeds. Usually seedlings are a little older than seeds, at least 2 weeks older. So you're basically getting a 2-week head start when you're planting with seedlings. There are, and as I said before, there are more varieties to seeds compared to seedlings though. So that's why I like using seeds. And what I do is, you can see this tray over there in the picture. I like to plant them in trays, and I have a little greenhouse that I have a bunch of seedlings right now in. And I plant the seeds in the trays, and then I can get the head start and I can save money. And as I said, you can get special varieties and rare varieties. I have a few rare varieties, such as the over here I have the white watermelon, and I had 1,000 head kale, purple kale, and as you can see over here I have a white watermelon. And you can get these different varieties that you can't ever get with seedlings from a normal nursery. And here is a few tips about seedlings and seeds. There are a few don'ts that you should never do, and one of them is buying something that does not produce as much as it's worth. So suppose if you spend $10 on a tomato plant, it should at least produce $10 of fruit, or else it's a waste. It's pretty basic, because it's not worth it. It's not worth it to buy a seedling. I'm not telling you not to grow that plant. I'm just telling that you should not buy a seedling for that plant. For example, lettuce is one of them, and lots of other greens. You buy a lettuce plant for $3. You get one head out of it, and usually the head is $1 to $2. So you're losing $1 for each seedling. But if you buy the seeds, then you're getting more and more veggies for lesser price. So that's just a way to grow more food for less money. These are a few veggies that you should not grow, start from seed. First one of them is beans. The reason beans is they just grow super fast, and it's not really worth it to buy a bean plant. And then corn, it just does not transplant well. Transplanting is when you take a plant from one pot to another. I tried corn multiple times transplanting. They just don't work well at all. These stumpy 2 feet plants, and they don't grow well at all. And okra, that's the same thing with okra. They don't grow well, and when I tried, they just died. And the ones that I planted from seed, they grew perfect. But the ones I planted in the trays, they just died. And any other root veggies such as carrots, beetroots, turnips, all of those, they should be planted directly into the soil. And that is mainly because you're growing the root, and whenever you transplant something, you damage the root a little, so you're getting a damaged carrot, which will grow much smaller. So now I'm going to be talking about how you should plant seeds in the soil. So when you plant seeds in the soil, you really want to dig, when you want to plant seedlings in the soil, you want to dig a hole, as you can see over here, in the picture. The hole is slightly bigger than the seedling, and you want to add some fertilizer or some soil amendments like compost if you don't have a raised bed, and you can plant this plant after that. Then you can transplant when you transplant it, you can bury the stem a little. If it's a tomato or if it's a plant that you know you can grow from the stem, then it'll get some stability, and it will also root from the stems, which will increase stability and root growth. So for how to plant seeds, you want to sprinkle fertilizer and soil amendment all over the soil, and you want to mix it up and amend it at the top, because you can't put the fertilizer and amendment at each and every different seed and hole. And then you'll have to find the seed spacing. There are seed spacing guides online, and on most seed packets they'll have it right over here on the back side. On a few seed packets they'll be on the inside, so just check them. For example, these Chocolate Beauty purple peppers will need 2-inch spacing, seed spacing, and the spacing between rows would be 30 inches. Like that, all of them will have different seed spacing guides, and you should use them to get the optimum fruiting or flowering. And usually you should plant 2 to 3 seeds per hole, because usually the seeds take a little bit of time to germinate, and again, viability. So if one of the seeds doesn't germinate, you'll have another one. But if all 3 of them germinate, you'll have to remove one. Usually what I do is I just snip them at the soil level, so I don't remove the root system, damage the root system. So this is called companion gardening, where you plant 1 or 2 plants together and they help each other. It's kind of like a symbiotic relationship, but it's a relationship that we kind of help it grow. So, for example, one of them is the Three Sisters garden, where you grow corn, and the corn is kind of like a pole, and then you grow pole beans, which wrap around the corn. So they use the corn as a trellis, and then you grow squash that grow on the ground that take up all of the space. So you're basically optimizing all of the space that is there to make sure that all of this you use all of the space, so you can grow much more food in much lesser space, or much more flowers in much lesser space. And another one of them is tomato plus basil. This is one that I really like, because instead of space efficiency, this deters pests. So basically, and also in Three Sisters garden, I forgot to mention, the beans have special nodes where they can take nitrogen up from this air, the nitrogen that's in the air, and it puts it in the soil. So that's called nitrogen fixing plants. So do clovers and lots of other plants like that. So tomatoes and basil, the basil deters pests that tomatoes usually get, like aphids and tomato worms and stuff like that. And so pole beans next to corn, the corn needs lots of nitrogen. So when the pole bean takes the nitrogen from the air and fixes it into the soil, the corn uses the extra nitrogen to produce more. And I will be putting this link in the chat at the end of the session. So now we're going to start planting microgreens. I hope everybody has the materials. I will give you 2 minutes to go get the materials. The materials are, let me open the email. So the materials are mustard or fenugreek seeds, or any other microgreen seeds, 2 paper towels, water, a small tray or bowl, and toilet tissues. Or this one, the toilet tissues or newspaper, that's going to be for the next session.
I have a couple of questions in case you want to address them in the next program. There are a few people who have posted some questions about the topics you spoke so far. Do you want to cover them now, or do you want to do that later?
I have a Q&A section that is coming up very soon. So as soon as we finish this activity and this workshop, we will do them as soon as that's over. So are you able to see the video of the paper and the tray? Are you able to see that? Or shall I off the presentation? Shall I?
No,
Are
I
you?
can see the email.
Okay, yeah. So I hope everybody got their materials. If you don't have those materials, you can watch me doing this and you could do this later. Okay, so does everybody have their materials? Okay. So I hope everybody has their materials. Can you see the? Can you put the spotlight on that?
Yeah.
So if this is on the spotlight, you should be able to see it. So today we're going to be growing microgreens, as I said. Today we're going to be growing microgreens, and depending on what seeds you have. So I have these mustard seeds over here. You can also grow any other microgreens. So over here I have this small paper towel, and I'm gonna put a little bit of water. You can use this spray, but I'm just gonna put a little bit of water on it. Just make sure. So make sure the whole part is wet. You don't want to make it too wet, but make sure it's at least a little moist. Make it all wet. And you should lay down. And during these 6 days between the sessions, these should be growing, and we can see the progress together. So has everybody done and put all of the trays? Has everybody put their papers and seeds? I mean, has everybody wet their paper and put it on their tray? Okay, so if you have, take your mustard seeds right here, or your microgreen seeds. You're gonna take them and you want to sprinkle them around. And you want to make sure you put them you want to try to make sure that you put them close. You should not be sparse with them, because the microgreens that you're going to cut and eat over here, they're going to be small plants, and if you want them to be coming really nice, you'll have to put a good amount. So as you can see, I have
As you're doing, can you talk about the benefits of microgreens, Uncle?
Yes, sure. So microgreens have multiple benefits. Number one is that they have more nutrition, since as soon as they come out of the seed has so much nutrition, and they're packing all the nutrition, because there are just only 2 leaves in a microgreen, 2 to 4 leaves. All of the nutrition is just packed in that tiny area. So that's why you get much more nutrition. And that's the same thing with like grass, wheatgrass and stuff. They're just packed in that 2 tiny leaves, or in those few tiny leaves, where you have much more nutrition. And you can use this in soups, You can use it like salad. You can make a microgreen salad. You can use it to make many dishes. You can explore that in Google. So the reason we're doing microgreens is if there are a few people who don't have any soil or potting mix, they have tissue papers and seeds, so you can just do this much easier. Okay, now I hope everybody who has the materials has finished this, putting the seeds. Okay, you can see that. And now I'm just going to sprinkle just a little bit of water on top of the seeds.
I have a question.
Yes.
Like, should we keep all these seeds on it, like the paper, and we need to empty the cup? Should we do that?
Wait, can you repeat your question?
Like, should we like sprinkle all the places?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we need to just empty the cup, the seeds we have. Should we empty it?
Sure, yeah, you should. I'm not sure exactly what amount you have, but as long as they're right next to each other, I think that's good.
Can I pitch in?
Yeah, sure.
It depends on the size of the tray you have, Talli. So it just depends on how big the tray you have. So it's not necessary. How many ever seeds you put, that many number of microgreens will come. It's okay. As a first try, you can do. As you keep trying and trying, you will get to know.
Okay. So I hope everybody who has the materials have done it. And if yes.
So like, if you were using mustard, would you spread it over the napkin?
Yes, you just spread it over the napkin. And one thing, you don't put another napkin on top. Just leave it like that and they'll sprout up. So you just spread them on the napkin. So I hope, and just take this to a windowsill. And if you haven't done this, it would be nice if you could do this at the end of the, after the session. And we can see all of these grow. So these are very fast growing. So on Saturday, I hope all of them, they would all grow, and we could all see them show our own microgreens in the video, and we could all see what we did. So I'm gonna go just put this in the windowsill. So I'm gonna go back to the presentation now, and now it's gonna be.
Hello? Excuse me, Sankalp, should we sprinkle water on the top of mustard seeds every day?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking the question. Yeah,
Yes.
you should sprinkle as you not every day, but just see if the seeds are moist, and if they're dry, you should definitely sprinkle them on them.
Thank you, Sankalp.
Welcome. Okay, so now I'll go.
Do I have to put this tray in direct sunlight or just the sun rays?
You should not put it in direct sunlight. It doesn't need that much sunlight. You can just put it next to a windowsill or in between on just a normal table, counter table, as long as there's a little bit of sunlight coming. It doesn't need too much. Don't put it outside, okay?
Okay.
Especially now.
You want to add the tip about the cover which you told me?
Oh yeah, you could also, if you want to make it humid, you could put a small little Ziploc cover, or you can, a grocery bag cover. Just put it on top, or any plastic, clear plastic on top of it to kind of create a greenhouse effect to keep the heat trapped in.
There's a couple of questions which came through from the chat.
Wait, give me 1 minute. So I just want to show you how I did the microgreens over here. These are the microgreens that my brother did with me and my mom. And then I just wanted to show you some produce that I got using these methods and what I talked about. And so these are some potatoes. Here are some, Here are some potatoes. Here are some bell peppers. And I have Mad Hatters, I have Anaheims, And over here, as I said, I like variety, so I have all the different types of varieties. Over here, I have these Ichibean eggplants, and then I have this okra. We have a few veggie leaves. So now it's the Q&A time. You can ask questions or email me at greenthumbgardening4@gmail.com. So now is the time to ask for questions.
So one of the
Where's
questions
the
which came through the
Q&A?
chat is, what is the difference between the soil to be used for seeding versus, sowing it into the soil?
So seeding soil. So wait, like, do they mean potting mix and seeding soil? Seeding mix?
Well, I assume they meant basically if you want to seed something in a pot, you are putting it into a pot and then you're transplanting it into the soil. Or when you're putting the seeds directly into the soil, what composition should you be looking at?
So you should usually you should use potting mix, except it should be refined and it should be as sterile as possible. It doesn't have to be sterile, but it's good if it's sterile because they're seeds. So usually what I use for seeding mix or potting is basically I sieve the mix. I have the sieve that I use, and then I take the normal potting mix that I make and I sieve it and I use that. I also add a little bit more extra vermiculite or perlite to make sure there's more drainage, especially for the seedlings, because they need a little bit more drainage to make sure they don't rot. Next question.
Next question is, how do we take care of the seedlings? Should we start them indoors or outdoors, and what kind of conditions are required?
The conditions required for them to survive are usually they should be in around minimum 65. They won't really sprout in 65, but they should be in 75 to max 85. So you should keep them warm. For them to sprout, they have to be warm. You can't just put them in cold soil and sprout them outdoors. This is not the time to start seeds outdoors and put them in the soil. Especially like summer plants. You can plant winter, but not summer.
That's the last question from the chat. What are we do find organic and inorganic soils in the stores? What is the difference and which one should we go?
So I would always say I'm a huge organic fan. So I would say always go with organic. Organic might be slightly expensive, but always go and organic. Always go with organic. So I saw a few more questions come in the chat. Is there anything else?
Sankalp?
Yes.
Yeah, after you've shown us how to, you've shown the practical, no? How to keep the towel paper and how to keep the seeds.
Yes.
And we should moisten them daily, like sprinkle water daily, or?
You can sprinkle them daily. Can you mute? So you can sprinkle them daily, or you can. So what I would do is, I would sprinkle them daily. But if they get too dry too fast, then I would add more water. So you can do it depending on how dry it is. Just make sure they don't get dry. Any other questions?
Sankalp, can you talk about the most easiest seeds to start for a beginner?
The easiest of the easiest, in my opinion, is tomatoes. Tomatoes. You just plant them, they grow. They're super easy. Another one is bell peppers. Same thing, you plant them and they need minimal care. They just need minimal care. That's all. You just plant them, add some fertilizer, water once in a while, and boom, you just got peppers. If you really want to boost production, you could go a little bit more in advanced and add extra fertilizer and nutrients and stuff. But I would say bell peppers and not onions. I mean bell peppers and tomatoes.
Do you have any suggestion where to get those seeds from?
I like to get my seeds from My Gardener. So he is My Gardener. So if I go into my sources, My Gardener is he has a YouTube channel called My Gardener, and he also has a seed shop. So most of the seeds that I got are from his seed shop, and I just love them because one, they're all 99 cents each packet, and they give more seeds. And finally, what I love about them is they have such a high success rate. Almost every one of the seeds that I planted sprouted that were properly, like almost everyone. So I planted 2 seeds of peppers and they just sprouted. They just have a very, very high viability rate. And I also got more seeds from, it's called Baker Creek rareseeds.com. I got a few of these rare seeds online, and I got these 1,000 head kale. So I got few of the rare, cool seeds that I'd like to plant this year online. So you can do, if you find, and you can also buy them from your local nursery, but those are usually a little more expensive.
Are you talking about some fertilizer? What type of fertilizer would you suggest? Do you have organic option and also store-bought mineral version? What do you suggest?
So usually in stores they will sell fertilizers, the normal fertilizer, and usually what I use for my plants is I use a normal organic, either all-purpose fertilizer or a fertilizer that's rich in nitrogen. Usually I was going to cover this more in the last class about fertilizers and pests, but fertilizer that I use, there are 3 numbers: nitrogen, phosphorus, and nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. And the first number should be high when you first plant, and when you continue fertilizing them throughout the season, it should be more phosphorus and potassium, because you'll need more flowers for fruit, or more flowers. And I would recommend any organic fertilizer. Just see the numbers and see, and with that I do supplement a little bit of compost tea, and those are totally supplemental. I do use mycorrhiza a little, and I also use a little bit of azomite. It's just geysers. They're the minerals that they get from geysers, and they are just some trace minerals that plants need and are not really a lot in compost.
Okay, sure. I
One more question from
waiting
chat.
for this.
Sorry, someone was saying.
So someone was saying something. Hello?
Shankar?
Siri?
Thank you, Sankalp. I just eager to wait for the end sessions you are mentioning about. Yeah, go ahead with your question, sir. Yeah.
There is one more question on the chat. Do you suggest that we add mycorrhiza to the soil in raised beds?
Yes. So most raised beds so if you grow inorganic right now, it is my recommendation to switch to organic as soon as possible. It's the new season. Its season hasn't even started, so you can try your best to remove I don't know how to change your raised bed from inorganic to, or change your garden to inorganic to organic, but you should use mycorrhiza in raised beds, because it helps with the soil, but most compost already has mycorrhiza in it. So if you see your plants are struggling and they just need a little bit more help, you can add mycorrhiza. I added a little bit in the start when I just first got it, so I didn't. Yeah, you should add it if you are growing inorganic right now and you want to switch. But most compost at the moment has mycorrhiza naturally in it.
Are you able to share the video, the recording? I kind of missed the earlier part. Would you be able to share the recording?
Yes, I will. If you email me, then I can share it. And I'm also going to be sharing it on YouTube soon.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, so there was another question asking what other seeds work well with microgreens. There are I have a huge list. I mean, amaranth, then you have lettuce, you have pretty much any green leaf works, but if you want me to tell a list, I could. Amaranth, lettuce, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and then you have fenugreek, mustard, and kale. You have red kale, you have red amaranth, you have green amaranth, and and you have Swiss chard. You have it's just an unending list. If you want to see the whole list and see what you have, you can search up on Google. Those are just a few.
I have a question.
Yes.
You were talking about companion gardening.
Mm-hmm.
Could you please tell me about the marigolds over there? I see some flowers. What's about that?
So usually marigolds, I also use them. Marigolds, like basil, deter pests because of their fragrance. If you ever smelled a marigold, you can see how nice smelling it is, and pests don't like that, and they fly away when they smell that. So that's why usually marigolds don't get too many pests.
So what do you combine? I mean, can you put anywhere in the veggie patches, or is there any particular combination with marigold?
I just put them at the corner of each of my raised beds. So I just put one in each corner. I put 3 in my big one, and in the big one in the back I put 3, and then I put one in the middle one, and so I just put one in each. And instead of marigolds, I'd like to use basil because basil deters pests, and it is a yummy herb. Is there any more questions, or
I just thought bees also get attracted to the flowers, right? Do bees get attracted to marigolds or any particular other flower plants, or?
Oh yeah, usually most veggies don't use bees for pollination, but melons do use bees. So marigolds, I'm pretty sure they attract. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure they attract bees for pollination, and those bees will also help squashes. So if you have, as you can see over here, behind me, that's a squash, and in my big, large giant pumpkin growing, I literally had 5 bees per flower, and each flower was like this big. So, and I had like 20 flowers on the plant. So that pumpkin had so many bees in the morning. So are there any more questions?
I think there's one question in the chat. Should I read it out for you?
Sure.
This is about the activity which you did about the microgreens. Do I have to keep the tray at one place, or can I move it depending on where I get the sun? This is from Vasudha Sridhar.
Well, the microgreens don't need too much sun. Maybe just a little would be enough. Like when you sprout things and get a little bit of roots, they don't need too much. But if you want, I don't know why, but if you don't put them in a place that has no sun, you can move them to a place where there is sun, but make sure you don't put them outside. They'll get too much sun, or it'll get too cold and they'll die. Or you can just put them near a windowsill or in your kitchen window. That's where my mom put them. So if you have any other questions, please email me to my email, greentubgardening4@gmail.com, and I'll put that, if I'm right, everybody has my email, and I can also put that in the chat. And I also want to remind you to come to the other 2 sessions. They are different, and to get the whole beginners series, you should come to all of them to get the so hopefully you should come to all of them so you can get the whole curriculum. So these are the sources, and thank you for listening to my presentation. I would love it if you consider seeing my YouTube channel, and post that in the chat. So it would be really nice if you could see my YouTube channel.
Sankalp, it was really super presentation. Thank you so much for very good explanation at this age. Thank you so much. Very good.
Keep it up.
Nice.
Thank you, Sankalp. I was not able to ask questions, but I was listening to you. So I can just email you to the email address which you have given out, right? With any of my questions.
We are not able to hear you, Sankalp.
Sorry, I didn't know I was unmuted. It would be really nice if you could join to the other sessions because this is just a small part of the 3 sessions. And if you want to understand the whole thing that I'm going to be talking about, you should come to all sessions. The second session is going to be about pots and plants, and the third session is going to be about plants and about pests and fertilizer. And those.
Can you say again?
So this here. So the second session is going to be the second session on the 18th is going to be about pots and plants, and the third session is going to be about pests and fertilizer. So I hope everybody had learned a lot in this session, and
Thank you, Sankalp. It's very informative.
thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Wonderful, really good. Good presentation, good slides, and every explanation, each and every word is so good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the next session. Thank you, Sankalp. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Sankalp.
Bye, Sankalp.
Bye. Bye, Srichana.
Thank you, Sankalp. Looking forward for your next sessions.
Okay, I'm looking forward for you too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. If there's any other questions you want to ask, you can stay and ask me. Or you can leave. Okay, it seems like nobody else has any questions, so